She hesitated for a moment, then sighed. Very well. I will tell you. But you must promise not to judge me. I promise, Kaelen said solemnly. Scout's honor. Lyra took a deep breath. When I was younger, she began. Before my parents, before they became so strict, I used to sneak out of the palace and explore the lower levels of the city. The lower levels? Kaelen repeated, his eyebrows raised. But those are dangerous, right? Filled with criminals and outcasts and gravity-defying sanitation systems? Precisely, Lyra said with a mischievous smile. That was the appeal. She explained that the lower levels were a stark contrast to the pristine, ordered beauty of the upper city. They were a chaotic, vibrant mix of cultures and races, a melting pot of the dispossessed and the disenfranchised. And for a young princess yearning for something more than gilded cages and endless etiquette lessons, they were intoxicating. I would disguise myself as a commoner and wander through the streets, Lyra continued. I would listen to the music, taste the food, talk to the people. I learned more about Elysium in those few hours than I ever did in the palace. What did your parents think when they found out? Kaelen asked, wincing. Lyra's smile faded. They were not pleased. They saw it as a betrayal, a reckless disregard for my safety and my duty. Did they punish you? Kaelen asked softly. Yes, Lyra said, her voice barely a whisper. They confined me to the palace, forbade me from ever leaving without a guard. They increased my lessons, my training, my indoctrination. She paused, her eyes filled with a deep sadness. That was the end of my rebellion. I realized that I could not have both the life I wanted and the life that was expected of me. But you still remember those days, don't you? Kaelen asked, his voice gentle. You still remember what it was like to be free, to be yourself? Lyra nodded slowly. Yes. I do. And sometimes, I wish I could go back. Kaelen reached out and took Lyra's hand, his touch gentle and reassuring. You can't, he said softly. You don't have to give up on your dreams, Lyra. You can still be the princess and still be yourself. You just have to find a way to balance the two. Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and disbelief. You really think so? She asked. I know so, Kaelen said firmly. You're strong, Lyra. You're smart. You're compassionate. You can do anything you set your mind to. He paused, then added, and besides, you're not alone. I'm here to help. I may not know much about being a princess, but I know a thing or two about being a rebel. And I'm pretty good at sneaking around. Lyra laughed, the sound lighter and more genuine than Kaelen had ever heard it. Perhaps you are right, she said. Perhaps there is still hope for me. Perhaps I can still find a way to be true to myself and still serve Elysium. She squeezed Kaelen's hand, her eyes filled with a newfound determination. Thank you, Kaelen, she said. You have given me something that I thought I had lost forever. You have given me hope. Kaelen smiled. Any time, princess. Any time. As they stood there, hand in hand, in the depths of the royal archives, a glimmer of connection sparked between them. A connection that transcended their cultural differences, their social positions, and their very different backgrounds. A connection that promised to change their lives forever. The newfound connection between Lyra and Kaelen was fragile, a spark in the darkness. They knew they had to be careful, to protect their growing bond from the forces that sought to tear them apart. As they continued their research into the Sundering, Lyra revealed more about the complexities of Elysian society, its hidden power structures, and its dangerous secrets. There is something you must understand, Kaelen, she said, her voice low and serious. Elysium is not as unified as it appears. There are factions, rivalries, and ancient grudges that simmer beneath the surface. I kind of figured that out when Senator Mordeth tried to stage a coup, Kaelen quipped. Lyra sighed. Mordeth is just one piece of the puzzle. There are other forces at play, forces that are even more powerful and even more dangerous. She explained that the monasteries, which were seemingly dedicated to spiritual pursuits and the preservation of ancient knowledge, wielded considerable influence in Elysian society. Their heads, the abbots and abbesses, were respected figures, consulted by the Senate on matters of great importance. "They are the keepers of our spiritual traditions," Lyra said. "They guide us, they inspire us, they control us." "Control you?" Kaelen repeated, his eyebrows raised. "How?" "They have influence over the prophecy crystal," Lyra explained. "They interpret its visions, they guide its power, they decide who is worthy of its blessings." She paused, then added, "And they are very traditional. They believe in the purity of the Elysian bloodline. They believe in the sanctity of our customs. They would not approve of you. So I'm basically persona non grata with the spiritual elite," Kaelen said glumly. "Worse," Lyra said, her voice barely a whisper. "They can sense emotions, Kaelen. They are trained to perceive the subtle vibrations of the soul. They can tell when someone is lying, when someone is hiding something, when someone is feeling something they shouldn't." "Like what?" Kaelen asked, his heart pounding in his chest. "Like affection," Lyra said, her cheeks flushing. "Like love. Like anything that deviates from the prescribed path." She paused again, her eyes filled with a warning. "That is why you must be careful, Kaelen. You must never reveal your true emotions in front of the heads of the monasteries. You must always maintain a neutral, respectful demeanor. You must never let them see what you are feeling." "Got it," Kaelen said, swallowing hard. "No smiling, no laughing, no holding hands. Just blank stare and polite nods. Sounds thrilling." The next day, a message arrived from the Lineage Covenant, a powerful organization that oversaw the genetic purity of various spacefaring races. It was a summons, requesting Lyra's presence at a formal meeting to discuss the prophecy crystal incident and its potential impact on the Elysian bloodline. Lyra was visibly troubled. "The Lineage Covenant," she murmured, her brow furrowed in concern. "This is not good." "What is it?" Kaelen asked, sensing her unease. "What's the Lineage Covenant?" "They are an organization dedicated to preserving the genetic integrity of the galaxy's dominant species," Lyra explained. "They believe that interbreeding with other races is a threat to the purity of bloodlines, a source of genetic contamination that must be avoided at all costs. And Elysium is on their radar because," Kaelen prompted. "Because we have been isolated for so long," Lyra said. "Our bloodline is considered to be one of the purest in the galaxy. The prophecy crystal is tied to our genetic code. And the fact that you, an Earthling, were involved in its shattering, well, it raises questions. Questions that the Covenant will not be happy with. So, they're basically space racists," Kaelen said, his voice hardening. "They would not put it that way," Lyra said defensively. "They believe that they are acting in the best interests of the galaxy. They believe that they are preventing the spread of genetic disease and instability by enforcing a policy of genetic segregation," Kaelen retorted. "Sounds pretty racist to me," Lyra sighed. "It is not as simple as that, Kaelen. The Lineage Covenant has legitimate concerns. Interbreeding can lead to genetic complications, to the weakening of bloodlines. They are simply trying to protect us from those risks." "Protect you?" Kaelen scoffed. "Or control you? It sounds like they're trying to tell you who you can and can't associate with. Who you can and can't love." Lyra's cheeks flushed again. "That is not fair," she said, her voice trembling with anger. "The Lineage Covenant has never interfered in our personal lives. They have only ever focused on matters of genetic purity." "Maybe not directly," Kaelen said, his eyes narrowing. "But their policies create a climate of fear and prejudice. They make it difficult for people to form relationships with those who are different from them. They stifle creativity, they stifle innovation, they stifle love." He paused, then added, "I'm sorry, Lyra. I didn't mean to upset you. But I hate seeing people being controlled, being manipulated. I hate seeing people being told who they are and what they are supposed to be." Lyra was silent for a moment, her eyes fixed on Kaelen's. She could see the passion in his eyes, the conviction in his voice. And she realized that he was right. The lineage covenant was interfering in their lives, even if it was only indirectly. Their policies were creating a climate of fear and prejudice. And they were stifling love. She took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. "You are right, Kaelen," she said, her voice gaining strength. "I will not allow the lineage covenant to control me. I will not allow them to dictate who I can and cannot associate with. And I will not allow them to stifle my love for my people." She paused, then added, "I will attend this meeting, but I will not be intimidated. I will defend Elysium's right to choose its own path. And I will not allow the lineage covenant to interfere in our affairs." "The journey was as expected," the representative replied, her voice modulated and impersonal. "I am Representative Astrea, of the Lineage Covenant. I am here to assess the situation regarding the prophecy crystal incident and its potential impact on the genetic integrity of Elysium." Lyra led Astrea into the Great Hall, where a formal reception had been prepared. Senators, councilors, and members of the clergy stood in silent attendance, their faces a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Astrea surveyed the assembled dignitaries, her golden mask glinting in the light. "I understand that an Earthling was involved in the shattering of the prophecy crystal," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "Is this true?" "It is true that Kaelen Vane, a historian from Earth, was present at the time of the incident," Lyra replied. "But I assure you, it was an accident. He did not intend to harm the crystal." "Accident or not, the crystal has been damaged," Astrea said. "And its connection to the Elysian bloodline has been disrupted. This is a matter of grave concern." She paused, her golden mask turning towards Lyra. "I understand that you have taken a personal interest in this Earthling," she said. "Is this also true?" Lyra hesitated. "I have been assisting Mr. Vane in his efforts to understand our culture and our traditions," she said carefully. "I believe that he can be a valuable asset in our efforts to repair the crystal." "You believe?" Astrea repeated, her voice laced with skepticism. "Or you hope?" She stepped closer to Lyra, her golden mask looming over her. "Be careful, Princess," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Emotions can cloud judgment. And love can be a dangerous distraction." A chill ran down Lyra's spine. Astrea's words were a direct challenge, a veiled threat. She knew that the representative was watching her, scrutinizing her every move, judging her every thought. In the days following Astrea's arrival, the chasm between Kaelen and Lyra's worlds grew wider and more apparent. Every conversation, every interaction, served as a stark reminder of their fundamental differences. Lyra, bound by centuries of tradition and the weight of her royal responsibilities, struggled to reconcile her growing feelings for Kaelen with her duty to Elysium. Kaelen, a free-thinking Earthling accustomed to questioning authority and embracing individuality, found himself increasingly frustrated by the rigid constraints of Elysian society. One evening, as they worked late in the archives, the tension finally boiled over. "I just don't understand why you can't see it," Kaelen exclaimed, his voice laced with frustration. "This lineage covenant is nothing but a bunch of bigots. They're trying to control your life, to dictate who you can and can't love." Lyra sighed, her face etched with weariness. "It is not that simple, Kaelen. The lineage covenant is concerned with the preservation of genetic purity, not with controlling our personal lives." "Oh, really?" Kaelen retorted. "Then why are they so interested in your relationship with me? Why are they watching us so closely? Why did Astrea practically accuse you of treason for daring to associate with an Earthling?" "She was merely expressing her concern for the integrity of the Elysian bloodline," Lyra said defensively. "It is her duty to ensure that we are not contaminated by outside influences." "Contaminated?" Kaelen repeated, his voice rising. "So that's how they see me? As a source of contamination? As a threat to your precious bloodline?" "That is not what I meant," Lyra said quickly. "You know that I do not see you that way." "Do you?" Kaelen challenged. "Or are you just saying that to make me feel better? Do you secretly believe that I'm somehow inferior?" That my earthly blood is somehow less pure than your Elysian blood? Lyra was silent for a moment, her eyes filled with a mixture of pain and confusion. I do not know what to believe anymore, she said softly. I am torn between my duty to Elysium and my feelings for you. I do not know how to reconcile the two. Let me spell it out for you, Kaelen said, his voice laced with anger. The lineage covenant has a policy, a prohibition, against interspecies union. That means, in their eyes, a relationship between you, an Elysian princess with a pure bloodline, and me, an earthling with a whole lot of different ethnicities mixed in, is forbidden. Taboo. A threat to their entire worldview. Lyra flinched, the weight of his words settling heavily upon her. She had known this, of course. She had always understood the Covenant's stance. But hearing it articulated so bluntly, so dismissively, was a painful reminder of the obstacles they faced. It's more than just a policy, Kaelen, Lyra explained, her voice strained. It's a cultural imperative. It's interwoven into the very fabric of galactic civilization. The lineage covenant isn't just some fringe group, they're the architects of interstellar society. She elaborated on the covenant's pervasive influence, their control over trade routes, their access to advanced technologies, their influence in the Senate Galacticum, the interstellar governing body. To defy the covenant was to invite economic ruin, technological stagnation, and political ostracism. For a fragile, isolated world like Elysium, it could be catastrophic. So we're screwed, Kaelen concluded, his voice flat. There's no way around it. We can't be together, not without risking everything. Lyra didn't respond, her silence a tacit acknowledgement of the grim reality. She looked out the window, at the shimmering city suspended among the clouds, a city built on tradition and conformity, a city that seemed to be slowly suffocating her spirit. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the archives, shattering the silence. You do not belong here. You do not have the right blood. Kaelen and Lyra whirled around, their hearts pounding in their chests. The chamber was empty. Who said that? Kaelen demanded, his hand instinctively reaching for his sidearm, which, of course, he didn't have. It was the voice, Lyra whispered, her face pale. The echo of the sundering. But it sounded different this time, Kaelen said, his brow furrowed. It sounded angrier, more personal. He turned to Lyra, his eyes filled with concern. Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. Lyra nodded slowly. I am disturbed, she said. The voice, it is not usually so forceful. It is usually just a whisper, a fleeting impression. But this time, it was almost as if someone were speaking directly to me. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the faces of the ancient texts that lined the walls. I think the voice is trying to warn me. It is trying to tell me that something bad is about to happen. Suddenly, the lights in the archives began to flicker. The shimmering crystals that lined the walls dimmed, casting long, ominous shadows across the chamber. The air grew cold, and a low, guttural hum filled the air. What's happening? Kaelen asked, his voice trembling slightly. Lyra shook her head, her eyes wide with fear. I do not know, she said. But it is not good. The lights flickered again, then died completely, plunging the archives into darkness. You don't belong here, you don't have the right blood. The words, laced with ancient prejudice and palpable hatred, reverberated in the sudden darkness, seemingly emanating from the very stones of the archive. Kaelen felt a primal chill crawl down his spine, a sensation far more visceral than the logical understanding that he was an outsider in a world that valued purity above all else. Lyra gasped, clutching her head. The crystal, it's weakening. The connection is fraying. Kaelen reached out, his hand finding Lyra's arm. Her skin was icy cold. What can we do? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra was silent for a moment, her mind racing. She knew that something terrible was happening, that the balance of power in Elysium was shifting, that the forces of tradition and prejudice were closing in on them. We have to leave, she said. We have to find a place where we can be safe, Where we can think clearly, where we can understand what is happening to the crystal before it's too late. Where can we go? Kaelen asked, his voice filled with urgency. Mordeth controls the city. Astria is watching our every move. Where can we hide? Lyra hesitated. There was only one place she could think of, a place that she had sworn never to return to. A place that held painful memories and dangerous secrets. There is a sanctuary, she said, her voice barely a whisper. A hidden place, far from the city, where my ancestors sought refuge in times of trouble. It is dangerous, and it is difficult to reach. But it is the only place where we can be safe from Mordeth and Astria. Where is it? Kaelen asked, his eyes fixed on hers. Lyra took another deep breath, her face etched with a mixture of fear and determination. It is in the lower levels, she said. In the heart of the Undercity. With the lights still out and a general feeling of anxiety in the air, the city felt more perilous than ever. Something bad was certainly about to happen. Lyra knew that taking Kaelen into the Undercity was dangerous. It was a risk of putting not only her life in danger but his as well. But it was a risk that she was more than willing to take. She knew she had to trust him. He was her ally in a world that seemed to be closing in on them. Their feelings for one another may have been clouded at the moment, but she still trusted him and had faith in their alliance. She knew that the path ahead would be fraught with difficulty, but this was a burden that they would have to bear. The journey to the Undercity was fraught with peril. Navigating the darkened corridors of the archives, they evaded patrols of royal guards, their energy weapons casting eerie shadows on the walls. Lyra, drawing on her knowledge of the palace's secret passages, led Kaelen through a maze of hidden tunnels and forgotten chambers. As they descended deeper into the city, Kaelen began to feel strange. A growing unease settled over him, a sense that something was shifting within his mind. He experienced fleeting flashes of images, snippets of conversations, faces that were both familiar and alien. Are you okay? Lyra asked, noticing his distress. You look pale. I don't know, Kaelen said, his voice strained. I'm seeing things, memories that aren't mine. What kind of memories? Lyra asked, her eyes filled with concern. I don't know, Kaelen repeated. Faces, battles, rituals, they don't make any sense. He paused, clutching his head. There's a woman, she's wearing a crown, she's powerful. Lyra gasped. A crown? She whispered. What does she look like? Kaelen struggled to focus, his mind swirling with fragmented images. Silver hair, violet eyes, she looks like you. The revelation hit Lyra like a physical blow. Asteria, she breathed, her face paling. Asteria? Kaelen repeated, his brow furrowed. Who's Asteria? She was a queen of Elysium, Lyra explained, her voice barely above a whisper. A legendary figure, revered for her wisdom and her strength. She ruled during a time of great turmoil, when Elysium was threatened by enemies both internal and external. And these memories, they're about her? Kaelen asked, his eyes filled with apprehension. Lyra nodded slowly. I think so, she said. I think something is happening to you, Kaelen. Something that is connecting you to our past, to our ancestors, to Asteria herself. She explained that Asteria was not just a queen, but a powerful psychic, capable of manipulating the prophecy crystal in ways that no one else had ever managed. She was said to have possessed the ability to tap into the collective consciousness of the Elysian people, to draw upon their memories and their experiences. It was also said that she was able to control the minds of others, or at least see what they were thinking, Lyra said, and looked a little concerned at that point. Are you afraid of me? Asked Kaelen. You think that I'm going to try and read your mind? Or control you? I trust you, said Lyra. I know that you wouldn't do anything to hurt me, even if you were able to. Kaelen and Lyra continued to make their way through the tunnels that lead to the Undercity, and they started to become more and more aware of those strange echoes of the past that were swirling through Kaelen's mind. Lyra could start to understand now that this wasn't a coincidence, and that they had to embrace it, and understand it if they were going to get to the bottom of what was going on. As they continued through the tunnels, it seemed that the same images and memories kept appearing in his mind, the same face of the woman with violet eyes who looked so much like Lyra. "I can see her," said Kaelen. "It's the woman, and she's shouting orders at what seems to be a large group of people. Maybe soldiers. She's sending them into battle. Asteria was a great warrior," Lyra said. "There were some very difficult times on Elysium. I guess those memories must be pretty intense." "They are," he said. "I can see them all now. It's almost like I was there." "Are you okay?" asked Lyra, concerned that it was maybe too much for him. "I'm fine," he said. "Maybe we're onto something here. Maybe there's something that we need to learn from these memories. Maybe there's a reason that I'm having them at all." Lyra looked at Kaelen, concerned. She thought that maybe it was a little too much, but then it also did make sense that if he was able to gain these experiences that were from the past, then that could hold the key to saving the present. Lyra paused, and then held Kaelen's hands and looked him in the eyes. "You know I would never want you to feel forced into doing anything. If this is too much, then we will stop. I will never let you put yourself in harm's way," she said. "Thank you. But it's okay. I can do this. I want to do this," Kaelen replied. Lyra and Kaelen came to a stop in an alcove as the visions and memories became more and more intense. "We need to understand these," said Lyra. "Because there has to be a reason. Elysium isn't a place for coincidences." It was at that moment that Kaelen fell to his knees as he cried out, and then grabbed his head. "What is it? What's happening?" Lyra said, as she became even more panicked. "I can see her, but not just her. There are others now, other rulers through the ages. It's like time is collapsing," he said. "There have been more than just Asteria," Lyra responded. "Of course, there have been many rulers of Elysium throughout time, that's obvious. But what does it all mean, and why are you seeing them now?" Suddenly the room was filled with images, not just in Kaelen's mind, but physical images that were translucent but imposing. Lyra was now starting to get a sense of it. It wasn't just the memories from the past, but the actual rulers from the past, and their memories and experiences, that were somehow connected to Kaelen and what he was going through. The images subsided, and then there was silence. "They're all connected somehow," said Kaelen. "They're all telling me the same thing." "What is it? What are they telling you?" replied Lyra, almost shouting. "That the end is near. That Elysium will fall, that the crystal must be protected, and that the lineage must be preserved. I don't understand what that means and what any of it has to do with me," said Lyra. "They say that you are key to it all," said Kaelen. "They say that you are the one." "What do they mean?" asked Lyra. "What do they mean that I am the one?" "I don't know," said Kaelen. "But we need to find out, and quickly." The images started to swirl again, and the memories became more and more intense as images flashed before their eyes. "They're telling me that we need to stop Mordeth," said Kaelen. "He's planning something, and it's going to be catastrophic." "I know that. I've known that since the moment he started to challenge my right to rule," said Lyra. "They say that he's working with someone from the outside," Kaelen continued. "Someone who wants to exploit the crystal for their own gain, and destroy everything that Elysium stands for. Asteria was always concerned that someone from outside would try and take over Elysium, and steal the crystal," said Lyra. "That was one of her most persistent fears. That fear has been passed down through generations. They say that time is running out," continued Kaelen. "They say that we need to act now. That if we don't, it will be too late." Lyra looked at Kaelen and thought about everything that had happened. Just how much she had on her shoulders, so much was at stake. The burden of leadership, the weight of history, the threat of Mordeth, the machinations of the lineage covenant, and now, these resurfacing memories, these ancient rulers, these cryptic warnings. All of that. Everything combined was a lot for one person to take. And that was before her increasing feelings for Kaelen. and just how he was now experiencing all of these things and having these visions. Lyra took a step back as her emotions overwhelmed her, and she started to become breathless. "What's wrong?" asked Kaelen. "It's just a lot," she replied. "I don't know if I can do this, there is just so much to take in." "You can do it," said Kaelen. "You're strong, you're smart, you're resilient. You've been through worse than this before, and you've always come out on top. And besides, you're not alone. I'm here to help you. We're in this together, remember? Lyra looked at Kaelen with a newfound sense of strength and belief. It was clear that these two had some incredible feelings for each other. The question now was how that played into saving Elysium. Lyra took a breath and regained her composure. "They always told me how I had to make sacrifices. To choose one thing over another. To deny certain parts of myself for the greater good. And I believed them. I thought that was the only way to be a good leader, a good queen," she said. "But now I realize that they were wrong. That I don't have to sacrifice anything. That I can be true to myself and still serve Elysium. That I can love and still be a leader." "Exactly. You have to find what is right for you," said Kaelen. "That balance that works, and it's not what anyone else tells you what it is. It's just what feels right for you." "But I am so afraid," replied Lyra. "Afraid of making the wrong choice, afraid of failing my people, afraid of losing everything." Kaelen took her hand again. "It's okay to be afraid," he said. "Fear is a natural emotion. It's what keeps us alive. But you can't let it control you. You can't let it paralyze you. You have to face your fears, Lyra. You have to embrace them. And you have to use them as fuel to propel you forward." He looked her directly in the eyes. "You've been carrying too many responsibilities on your shoulders, Lyra. Way too many. And it's not your burden to carry alone. Let me help you. Let us face this together. Whatever happens, we'll face it side by side." Lyra's expression softened, and a flicker of hope ignited in her violet eyes. She knew that Kaelen was right. She couldn't carry this burden alone. She needed his help, his support, his love. She took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. "Okay," she said, her voice regaining its strength. "Okay, let's do this. Let's face our fears, let's embrace the unknown, and let's save Elysium. Together." Lyra looked at Kaelen, her eyes filled with a newfound resolve. The weight of her responsibilities still pressed heavily upon her, but now, she felt a glimmer of hope, a sense that she was not alone in this fight. "I know what I have to do," she said, her voice clear and steady. "I have to break free from the constraints of tradition, from the expectations of the lineage covenant, and from the manipulations of Senator Mordaunt. I have to choose my own path, even if it means risking everything." She reached out and took Kaelen's hand, her touch firm and deliberate. "And I choose you, Kaelen Vane," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I choose you over duty, over tradition, over everything that I have ever known. I choose a different future, a future where love is not a weakness, but a strength. A future where diversity is not a threat, but a blessing. A future where Elysium is not defined by its past, but by its potential." Kaelen squeezed her hand, his heart swelling with emotion. "I choose you too, Lyra Nissa," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "I choose you over everything that I have ever known. I choose a future where we can be together, no matter what the cost. A future where we can build a better world, a world where love and compassion prevail." He took a step closer, his eyes fixed on hers. "And I promise you, Lyra," he said, his voice filled with conviction, "we will overcome this. Together." Guided by the fragmented memories flooding Kaelen's mind, they reached a hidden chamber deep within the Undercity. The chamber was dimly lit by bioluminescent fungi, revealing a circular platform in the center of the room. On the platform lay the largest fragments of the prophecy crystal, salvaged after the incident in the Great Hall. They shimmered faintly, radiating a faint, ethereal light. "This is it," Kaelen said, his voice barely a whisper. "This is where we can connect with the crystal, where we can understand what is happening to Elysium, Lyra approached the platform cautiously, her hand outstretched. "Are you sure about this, Kaelen?" she asked, her voice filled with apprehension. "We do not know what will happen if we touch it. We could unleash forces that we cannot control." "I know," Kaelen said. "But we have to try. Time is running out, Lyra. We can't afford to wait any longer." He took a deep breath and stepped onto the platform. He closed his eyes and reached out, his hand trembling slightly as he approached the shattered fragments of the prophecy crystal. He hesitated for a moment, then touched them. A jolt of energy surged through his body, throwing him backwards. Images flashed before his eyes, fragments of the past, visions of the future, swirling together in a chaotic vortex of light and sound. He cried out in pain, his mind struggling to process the overwhelming influx of information. Then, suddenly, everything went silent. Lyra watched in horror as Kaelen collapsed onto the platform, his body convulsing. She rushed to his side, her heart pounding in her chest. "Kaelen!" she cried, shaking him gently. "Kaelen, are you okay? What happened?" Kaelen slowly opened his eyes, his gaze unfocused. He looked around the chamber, his expression confused. I don't know," he stammered. "I saw everything. Past, present, future, it was all jumbled together." He sat up slowly, wincing in pain. "But something else happened. I feel different. I feel connected." He looked at Lyra, his eyes filled with a newfound understanding. "I can see it now," he said. "I can see what Asteria was trying to do. I can see what we have to do to save Elysium." As Kaelen spoke, Lyra felt a strange sensation tingling through her body. It was a faint, almost imperceptible warmth, a feeling of connection, of understanding. She looked at Kaelen, and for the first time, she saw not an outsider, not a foreigner, but a kindred spirit, a soulmate. She reached out and took his hand, her touch sending a jolt of energy through both of them. Images flashed through her mind, visions of Asteria, of the past, of the future. She saw the threat that Mordeth posed to Elysium, the danger that the lineage covenant represented, and the path that she and Kaelen had to take to save their world. The connection to the prophecy crystal brought new understanding, but also a wave of insecurity to Lyra. The potential consequences of their actions weighed heavily upon her. She had always strived for calculated decisions, ensuring stability for Elysium. Now, she was embarking on a path shrouded in uncertainty, fueled by instinct and a bond with someone from another world. "Are we doing the right thing, Kaelen?" Lyra asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Are we truly saving Elysium, or are we leading it to destruction?" Kaelen took her hands in his gaze unwavering. "We're doing the only thing we can do, Lyra. We're following our hearts, we're trusting our instincts, and we're fighting for what we believe in. That's all anyone can ever do." But Lyra couldn't shake off the feeling of doubt. The pressure of leadership, the expectations of her people, the potential consequences of failure. It was all too much to bear. As they tried to piece together a plan, a communication signal broke through, displaying a holographic image of Senator Mordeth. "Princess Lyra," Mordeth began, his voice dripping with condescension. "I understand you have taken refuge in the Undercity with your Earthling companion. A foolish decision, one born of desperation." Lyra straightened her shoulders, meeting his gaze with defiance. "I am acting in the best interests of Elysium, Senator. Something you seem incapable of understanding." Mordeth chuckled, a chilling sound. "You are deluding yourself, Princess. You are blinded by your infatuation with this outsider. You are leading Elysium down a path of ruin." He paused, his expression hardening. "I am giving you one last chance, Lyra. Surrender yourself, and turn over the Earthling to my custody. I promise you, I will ensure the safety and stability of Elysium." "And what will happen to Kaelen?" Lyra challenged. "He will be dealt with," Mordeth said, his voice laced with a sinister undertone. "I will never surrender to you, Mordeth," Lyra said, her voice filled with defiance. "I will fight for Elysium, and I will protect Kaelen." "Then you have made your choice," Mordeth said, his expression turning cold and ruthless. "Prepare yourself, Princess. The time for diplomacy is over. The time for action has come." The communication terminated, leaving Lyra and Kaelen alone in the dimly lit chamber, the senator's words hanging heavy in the air. Lyra paced back and forth, her mind racing. Mordeth's message was a clear declaration of war. He was no longer content to manipulate from the shadows. He was ready to seize control of Elysium by force. "What do we do?" Kaelen asked, his voice filled with urgency. "He's coming for us. He's going to try to take the crystal. And he's going to try to hurt you." Lyra stopped pacing and looked at Kaelen, her eyes filled with a newfound determination. "We have to fight, Kaelen," she said, her voice resolute. "We have to protect the crystal, and we have to protect Elysium." She looked at Kaelen, and her expression softened. "And we have to protect each other." She took his hand, her touch sending a surge of warmth and strength through both of them. "I do not know what the future holds, Kaelen," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "But I know that we will face it together. We will overcome every obstacle, we will defeat every enemy, and we will build a better future for Elysium." She paused, then added, "Overcome together." Kaelen squeezed her hand, his eyes filled with love and admiration. "Together," he echoed. They looked at each other, their hearts filled with hope and determination. They knew that the challenges ahead would be immense. But they also knew that they were not alone. They had each other, and they had the power of the prophecy crystal on their side. And that was enough. With their decision made, and their promise sealed, Lyra and Kaelen turned their attention to the task at hand, preparing for the coming storm. Lyra, drawing upon her knowledge of the Undercity, began to gather allies, reaching out to the various factions and communities that resided in the shadows. She spoke of Mordeth's treachery, of his alliance with outsiders, and of his plans to exploit the prophecy crystal for his own gain. She found a surprising number of people willing to support her, people who had long resented Mordeth's oppressive rule and yearned for a better future. They pledged their loyalty to Lyra, promising to fight alongside her against Mordeth's forces. Kaelen, meanwhile, delved deeper into the memories that were flooding his mind, trying to decipher Asteria's warnings and understand the secrets of the prophecy crystal. He discovered ancient rituals, forgotten technologies, and hidden weaknesses in Mordeth's defenses. As they worked together, Lyra and Kaelen's bond grew stronger, their trust deepened, and their love blossomed. They found strength in each other's arms, solace in each other's presence, and hope in each other's eyes. They knew that the battle ahead would be difficult, but they were not afraid. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead together. The Undercity buzzed with a nervous energy. Lyra's call to arms had resonated through the hidden communities, and now, a ragtag army of rebels stood ready to defend Elysium. Smugglers, outcasts, mechanics, and even a few disillusioned royal guards had joined her cause, their faces grim but determined. Kaelen, his mind still swirling with the memories of past rulers, worked tirelessly to coordinate the defense. He used his knowledge of earthly tactics and strategy to devise a plan that would exploit Mordeth's weaknesses and maximize the rebels' strengths. He knew that they were outnumbered and outgunned. But he also knew that they had something that Mordeth lacked, the will to fight for what they believed in. They were fighting for freedom, for equality, for a future where Elysium was not defined by its past, but by its potential. The attack began at dawn. Mordeth's forces, clad in gleaming armor and wielding advanced energy weapons, stormed into the Undercity, their advance relentless. The rebels, armed with cobbled-together weapons and a fierce determination, met them head-on, turning the narrow tunnels and crowded marketplaces into a battleground. Lyra, leading the charge alongside Kaelen, fought with a ferocity that surprised even herself. She wielded her energy pistol with deadly accuracy, taking down enemy soldiers with precise shots. She moved with grace and agility, inspiring her troops with her courage and her unwavering commitment to their cause. Kaelen, meanwhile, directed the rebels' movements, using his tactical skills to outmaneuver Mordeth's forces and exploit their vulnerabilities. He set traps, ambushes, and diversions, disrupting the enemy's advance and turning the tide of the battle. As the fighting raged, Lyra and Kaelen discovered the source of Mordeth's strength. He was being supported by a force from beyond Elysium, a group of mercenaries hired by Astrea and the Lineage Covenant to ensure the preservation of the Elysian bloodline. The mercenaries were ruthless and efficient, their advanced technology and brutal tactics overwhelming the rebels. Lyra and Kaelen realized that they were not just fighting Mordeth, they were fighting the entire Lineage Covenant. "We have to stop them," Lyra said, her voice filled with determination. "We have to break the chains that bind Elysium to the Covenant's outdated ideals." Following Kaelen's tactical insights, Lyra finally confronted Mordeth in the city's central nexus, a chamber built around one of the original pieces of the prophecy crystal, a piece that had not shattered. It was here Mordeth planned to siphon power into a weapon, a signal to alert the rest of the Covenant to Elysium's contamination. Mordeth stood before the device, his face a mask of fanatical zeal. Astrea stood just behind him, a silent, golden specter of judgment. "It is over, Lyra," Mordeth declared, his voice booming through the chamber. "Your rebellion is doomed. The Lineage Covenant will ensure the purity of Elysium, even if it means destroying everything you hold dear." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes blazing with defiance. "You are wrong, Mordeth," she said. "The Lineage Covenant is not protecting Elysium, it is suffocating it. It is holding us back, preventing us from reaching our full potential." "You are blind, Lyra," Mordeth retorted. "You are blinded by your love for this outsider. You cannot see the danger that you are bringing upon us." "I see the danger perfectly clearly, Mordeth," Lyra said. "The danger of clinging to the past, of rejecting the future, of allowing fear to control our lives." She raised her energy pistol, her hand steady. "I will not allow you to destroy Elysium, Mordeth. I will fight for our future, for our freedom, for our right to choose our own destiny." Lyra and Mordeth engaged in a fierce duel, their energy weapons clashing in a shower of sparks. Lyra fought with a skill and determination that surprised even herself, fueled by her love for Kaelen and her commitment to Elysium's future. Mordeth, driven by his fanatical zeal and his desire for power, fought with ruthless efficiency. He used every trick and tactic at his disposal, trying to overwhelm Lyra with his superior strength and experience. As they fought, Kaelen worked feverishly to disable the Covenant device, his mind racing to decipher its complex mechanisms. He used his knowledge of earthly technology and his understanding of the prophecy crystal to find a way to disrupt its connection to the Lineage Covenant network. The final battle was fierce and destructive, tearing away at the central piece of the prophecy crystal. In one swift movement, as Mordeth took aim, Lyra shot the device, and Kaelen pulled out the mechanism that stopped the energy flowing out. With a surge of power, it exploded. Lyra was knocked to the floor, with only Kaelen able to stand. With Mordeth defeated, his forces scattered, and the Covenant device destroyed, Lyra took to the airwaves, broadcasting a message to the entire galaxy. "People of Elysium, people of the galaxy," she began, her voice clear and strong. "I am Lyra Nissa, Crown Princess of Elysium. I speak to you today to declare our independence from the Lineage Covenant. For too long, we have been bound by their outdated ideals, their fear-mongering, and their stifling control. For too long, we have been told who we can be, who we can love, and what we can achieve." She paused, taking a deep breath. "No more. Today, I break the chains of the Lineage Covenant. We will no longer be dictated by their prejudices, their restrictions, or their narrow-minded view of the galaxy. We will chart our own course, we will embrace diversity, and we will build a future where everyone is free to be themselves, to love who they choose, and to achieve their full potential." Her voice resonated with passion and conviction. "We will rewrite history," she declared. "We will create a new era of peace, prosperity, and understanding. We will show the galaxy that strength lies not in purity, but in diversity. Not in control, but in freedom. Not in fear, but in love." As her message echoed through the galaxy, the people of Elysium erupted in cheers. They had finally broken free from the chains that had bound them for so long. They were finally free to choose their own destiny. In the weeks and months that followed, Elysium underwent a transformation. The rigid social structures began to crumble, the oppressive laws were repealed, and the doors were opened to the wider galaxy. Lyra, with Kaelen by her side, led the way, guiding her people towards a brighter future. She embraced diversity, encouraged innovation, and fostered a climate of tolerance and understanding. Elysium became a beacon of hope, a symbol of what could be achieved when people dared to break free from the constraints of tradition and embrace the power of love and compassion. Lyra and Kaelen, their love stronger than ever, continued to work together to build a better world. They traveled throughout the galaxy, spreading their message of hope and inspiring others to break free from the chains of prejudice and fear. They faced challenges, of course. There were those who clung to the old ways, those who resisted change, and those who sought to exploit the chaos for their own gain. But Lyra and Kaelen persevered, their unwavering commitment to their cause inspiring others to join them. They formed alliances with other races, built bridges between different cultures, and fostered a sense of unity and cooperation throughout the galaxy. They showed the world that love could conquer all, that even the most deeply entrenched prejudices could be overcome with compassion and understanding. Years later, Lyra and Kaelen stood on the balcony of the Great Hall, overlooking the city of Elysium Prime. The city was no longer just a pristine paradise suspended among the clouds. It was now a vibrant, diverse metropolis, a melting pot of cultures and races, a testament to the power of love and acceptance. They held hands, their faces etched with a mixture of joy and weariness. They had fought hard, they had sacrificed much, but they had prevailed. They had built a better future for Elysium, and they had inspired the galaxy to do the same. "We did it," Kaelen said, his voice filled with emotion. "We rewrote history." Lyra smiled, her eyes filled with love and gratitude. "We did it together," she said. "And that is all that matters." They looked out at the city, their hearts filled with hope. They knew that the challenges ahead would be immense. But they also knew that they were not alone. They had each other, and they had the support of the entire galaxy. And that was enough.